appear in Mecca, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give him enormous power, great power. I'm talking about power of authority and leadership, great army. He will have extraordinary wealth, gather it all, and he will manage it and change the world from the state of oppression to the state of justice. Just as it was filled with oppression, he will destroy things like capitalism, for example. He will have more control of the money and he will distribute it in a just way. To the point where the Rasul tells us that there will be no one. There'll come a time in his time where there will be no one to receive the zakat or charity. Because there are no poor people anymore. And they'll say, give it to so-and-so. I have enough. They're probably poorer than I am. But there's no poor people. Zakat can't be given and sadaqah can't be given to anyone. In wealth-wise, we're talking about. And this is Imam Mahdi. He will live with an army that will fight a people from the Arabian Peninsula. A group of them, the earth will swallow them, and a group of them, he will destroy them. And they said, Ya Rasulullah, what if in that group of army which he destroys are people who do not intend to fight the Mahdi, but they've got mixed knowledge, they're confused, and they're thinking that they're on the right path. He said, everyone that dies on that day will be raised according to their intention that they were fighting for. يُبْعَثُ عَلَى مَا مَاتَ عَلَيْهِ عَلَى نِيَّتِهِ, according to his intention. Then he will fight another army who will come to fight him from Bilad al-Furs, which is Persia in those days. Today, now, it's where Iran is. It's Iran in particular. Whether it will remain as Iran or not, Allahu A'lam. At the moment in Iran, the leading population are the Rafidah. Rafidah, they're known as Shia at the moment. Whether they are the ones or whether it's someone else, Allah only knows. But just to point this out, the Rafidah, the Shia, have a different idea about who Al-Mahdi is. Totally different to the Mahdi of ours. I'm not going to go into detail about that. You can ask them if you know one. But he is a very different Mahdi to ours. And there happened a particular fight one time in Mecca a few years back, which involved the Rafidah, and someone was thought to be the Mahdi, but this man was killed. And the Mahdi cannot be killed like that until he rules the world. And for 10 years he fills it with justice. And his name is Muhammad, the son of Abdullah. Just like the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, son of Abdullah, his father. And he will have the same characteristics as the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ. Same character, very similar manners and character. We described his features last week. His army will fight the Romans. The Romans in those days, or the Byzantines in those days, today are most likely the majority of the Europeans. They're the descendants of the Romans and the Byzantines. So whoever they are today, and they are mostly the European descendants of the Romans, Byzantines, Al-Mahdi will have his army to fight them. And Rasul ﷺ said, تُصَالِحُونَ الرُّومِ, you will unite together with, or you will have a treaty, a partnership with the Romans. In those days, as I said, Romans, today most likely the Europeans. You will have a treaty with them together, a partnership deal, where you will fight an enemy that is the Romans' enemy. عَدُوًا مِّن وَرَائِهِمْ, you will fight an enemy that's for the Romans. You will win. And then a fight will erupt between the Muslims and the Christians. Ar-Rum in those days were known as the cross bearers or the Crusades. And they will return. They will return. And the Muslims will fight. There will be a war between the Kitabiyun, the people of the book, and the Muslims. Wa alaykum as-salam. We spoke about this last week, but just to recap, Rasul ﷺ told us it will be maqtalatun, it would be al-malhamatu al-kubra, he called it. The great war, the great combat. You will find that the flying object on the sides, outside, on the outskirts of the war, will drop from the sky from the intensity of this battle. They will fall from the sky from the intensity of this battle. Allahu A'lam. Allahu A'lam what this is interpreted as, but what we can guess, just a guess, is nuclear weapons. But Allah knows best. Because what will make the flying objects or flying birds drop from the sky unless you just shoot them down? But the hadith is not saying it will be a fight with the birds, nor will people be shooting birds down. They will drop from the intensity of the war. Wallahu a'lam what else that could mean. He said the Muslims will send out a shurta. A shurta is like a large group of army, a batch, a brigade. And they will fight until the night departs between them. Is it the first night? Is it the second night? Is it nights after? Allahu a'lam. Some scholars said it's the first night, some said later on, many other nights later. Allahu a'lam which one it is. But the point is, the night will depart between them for some reason. And everyone will rest at wherever they are. He says, فَتَفْنَ الشُّرْطَةِ. The whole brigade, the Muslim brigade that was sent out, will perish. Not only perish, the word tafna means they will become extinct, or they will disappear. Tafna, disappear. Like those aeroplanes and ships you heard about that go into the Bermuda Triangle, they disappeared and no one knows where they went. That's what will happen to this brigade. But they are proper Muslims, fighting in a proper war for the sake of Allah. They'll send out a next brigade, same thing will happen to them. And they'll send out a third brigade, same thing will happen to them. We don't know the details of timing and place. But what we do know is that if it's 3 brigades and they will disappear, and it will be, they said, Ya Rasulullah, where will it be? He said, it will be in Ash-Sham. In Ash-Sham. And also, Sham today, you know where Ash-Sham is? We're talking about what used to be called Greater Syria. To some people, Ash-Sham means Syria itself, where it is ruled by the President Al-Assad. But no, it is not that. It is the Greater Syria, which is known before World War I. Greater Syria, which involves, countries like Lebanon, Palestine, Jordan, right? Even Iraq and those areas. Probably ends with Iraq, the Sham. And he said this fight will be in the Sham. And he said the best of all people will be in the Sham. And the ones who will rise against them will be in the Sham. He even said, أنت في رباط ما دمت في الشام. You are you are standing guard as if you are in a war, standing guard until the last hour, so long as you are in the Sham, meaning the Sham will never cease from battles or from always standing guard, will always be at risk in a Sham. I went and lived in Lebanon for 4 years only, and this was the most peaceful time in the early 90s. And in that time, 2 potential wars happened. 2 things happened over there that were potentially going to return back the civil war. And it was always at an unrest. People are expecting anything to happen any day. From ever since we know Ash-Sham, it's been like that. Wars have passed through there and battles. It's not because it's a bad country, a'udhu billah. It is actually a blessed place. But look, the good and evil always fight. And the good and evil will keep on combating to the last hour. This land, Ash-Sham, has the good in it. Now it's mixed, but the good will always be in Ash-Sham and the evil will always be fighting it. Wherever the good is, the evil is fighting. Where the evil is, the good is fighting it. Abadan. And Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us, الصراع بين الحق والباطل. The combat between truth and false will always be there till the last hour. And the false will always be a little bit ahead. Why? Because the truth will beat the false, then another false will come. It's easy to make up false things, but the truth remains the truth. It never changes, never adds, never diminishes. So in Ash-Sham, you're always in battle. And Rasul told us in those days, the best of all believers will be in that place. The best of all of them will be in that place. Rasul asked Allah to barik in Ash-Sham, to bless Ash-Sham and its people. And over there, my dear brothers and sisters in Islam, will be these battles. There will also be a group of people who are also in the Sham, and Rasul ﷺ spoke about them in particular. And we don't know their names or their exact nationality, but we know where they're situated. Rasul ﷺ told us in the Sahih Hadith, there will come a time, he's telling this to his companions, where there will be a group of believers who will be on the truth. They will have learnt the Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ very well. They would have digested it and taught their children well. So they live the life of Islam, even though the odds are all against them from everywhere. But they live it, even if it's only a small amount of them. He said, the people will gather against them, and I will keep on fighting and protecting the symbols of Islam and the truth and justice. He said, Wallahi, one of their martyrs is better than 50 of yours, of the companions. They said, Ya Rasulullah, who are these people, yani, and why? Why is this the case? He said, لِأَنَّكُمْ تَجِدُونَ أَعْوَانَ وَلَا يَجِدُونَ. You, alhamdulillah, you fight, and your war is amazing, and your martyrdom is amazing, and you fight for justice and protect the innocent and all your blood and everything. However, you have helpers. You've got helpers now. You've got supporters, Muslims supporting one another. But them, when their time comes, they will look everywhere and they will find no helpers. Their brothers will desert them, their Muslim brothers will desert them, the countries will desert them, the leaders will not help them, and they are only on their own. They said, Ya Rasulullah, where are they found? He said, in those days they'll be على أكناف بيت المقدس or بأكناف بيت المقدس, on the outskirts or the borders of Jerusalem. They're there. Are they there now? Probably. Will they be there more later on? Allahu Alam, maybe. But to the best of my guess is that they are there now fighting, protecting. And they are not really known or heard about in the media because we know what the media is all about. Changing false into truth and truth into false, as they suit, whoever's in power. So this is what's going on in there, Rasul ﷺ told us about. He even told us the truth is the false and the false becomes the truth, and the leaders are the ones who betray, and the leaders are the ones who are not qualified, and the people who are placed in leadership and responsibility are the ones not qualified for the responsibility. The people who are qualified and the true leaders are put backwards, meaning they're put underneath these betrayers and these unqualified people. As he said, إِذَا وُسِّدَتِ الْأَمَانَةُ إِلَى غَيْرِ أَهْلِهَا فَارْتَقِبِ السَّاعَةِ. Rasul ﷺ said, when the trust or the responsibility is given to people who are not qualified for it, then wait for the last hour to come, meaning await for it. It's very soon, very soon. Al-Mahdi's army will fight, and these people will come with them, and they will, in the end, they will be victorious against this Roman army. And Rasul ﷺ said, as Ibn Abbas narrates this hadith, radiallahu anhu, in a long hadith where a man saw smoke in the sky and he ran to Ibn Abbas and said to him, the last hour has come, the last hour has come. He was reclining, then he sat up and he said, no, the last hour could not have come yet. And he said, the last hour will not come until the Muslims fight the Romans bidabiq. Dabiq is a place close to in the Sham, a little bit outside of Medina, in Dabiq. So you can see Rasulullah telling us in that area, outside of Medina, not directly in Saudi, or in Medina because it's in Saudi, but outside of it, somewhere in Dabiq, in the mid part of Ash-Sham, of the Middle East that we know of today. He said, you will fight the Romans in Dabiq, and he said, you will fight them tremendously until the flying object will fall from the sky, and all of this will happen to you. Then finally the rest of the Muslims that are left, men, women and children, they'll come up and they'll fight them and they'll be victorious. He said, حين لا يفرح بغنيمة ولا بميراث. Ibn Abbas said, the day when there will be no rejoice or excitement over any inheritance that was left behind or over any booty of war. Because if there was 100 people in a family, 99 of them would have perished and died in this war. So it's a fierce war, terrible war. It's about to come. And a large reason for it being terrible is the disunity of the Muslims, the sectarianism that we are now in. the groupism that we are now in, the disunity of the Muslims, following particular men, not following Rasulullah ﷺ, but following particular men, in a time where the truth is evaluated by the man they follow, meaning whatever the man is, that's the truth. It should be the opposite. It should be that the truth is there and you judge the man by the truth. You don't judge the truth by the man. And today it's like that. You judge the truth by the man. If you like the man, you say that's the truth and you don't listen to anyone else. The truth is there. Rasulullah showed us to it as clear as the sun. So this biased approach that we have and prejudice has spread throughout the world. And this is why we have reached what we have reached. Rasulullah said, 80 nations will gather against you. 80 raya, 80 flags, 80 nations will gather against the Muslims in Ash-Sham. We will win. The final victory is for the Muslims. However, we'll be in that state. And these Muslims will go also to a place that the Prophet ﷺ called it Constantinople. The Turkish people would know where that place is. And they asked him, Ya Rasulullah, where is this place? He said, have you heard of that land which is part in land and part of it's in water? He said, yes, Ya Rasulullah. Istanbul, Constantinople, those areas. He said, the Muslims will regain it. And it was twice the Muslims will take it. They took it over once, it will be taken from them, or it will be transformed and divided, and then it will be taken once again under the Sharia of Islam. He said that time when the Romans are defeated, the Muslims will be in power. And they will go to Constantinople. And they will take it over with 3 takbirs. They'll come to the first part, reciting the words Allahu Akbar. As soon as the people of that part hear him, they will give in the land. They'll give it in. They won't even fight. They'll keep going into the land. They'll reach half of it, saying the words Allahu Akbar, and the people will just give it to them. They'll say, we can't beat these people. Until finally they take the rest of it. It'll get worse before it gets better. And whether it be Muslims who convert into becoming non-Muslims, apostate, or whether they Christians take over, or whoever other non-Muslims take over, this place will get worse before it gets better. And the Prophet ﷺ said, every generation that comes is worse than their state is worse than the generation before. Finally, it'll be called out, and it'll be said, please run back to your family and homes, for Ad-Dajjal has come out. Now, this is the second major sign I want to discuss. Ad-Dajjal, literally in Arabic, the word Ad-Dajjal means the liar, the betrayer, the illusionist, all right, all these words. The trickster, or more than that, but illusionist, the deceiver, Ad-Dajjal, Dajjal. In every way that you can think of lies, all of its forms, Ad-Dajjal will have all these forms. And the worst, the most dangerous thing Ad-Dajjal will have is the psychological deception. Dajjal, the worst, what's so bad? We've had many wars before and Muslims have been wiped out in countries, in places before, but this Dajjal, he doesn't wipe out or take over the rule or authority or power in the world really by weapons of mass destruction or all that stuff. He takes it over by the psychological war. And what do we live in today? What kind of wars do you think today are the strongest and most dangerous wars? It's not the wars of blood and mass destruction. No, it is the ideological wars that we are living now. You could be living in the most peaceful country, and through the internet and television, our youth, our Muslim youth, are being destroyed mentally, psychologically, where there is, how can I explain it? We are now in a time of what we can call something like a very complex reverse psychological war, reverse psychology, mixed with other deceptions. You look at the evil and you think it's good, and it comes to you with a smile. And our youth think it's okay, until religion is looked at as a restriction rather than a protection. We're not going to dwell too much on that, but what I do want to let you know is that at the moment, the Dajjal will not come until there are prerequisites. There are certain occurrences that are going to happen before the Dajjal comes out. And this man, Ad-Dajjal, will come out at a time where the world is ready to accept him in his Dajjal, in his deception. Will find followers. Ad-Dajjal. Rasul ﷺ called him Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal or Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal. Why? The word Al-Masih, the one wiped off. Or because referring to one of his eyes, it looks like it's wiped. The light has gone away from it. It's dark and he can't see with it. One eye he can't see. And it will look like it's flat, like a grape that has its liquid sucked out of it. Al-Masih. And sometimes Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal. The Christ, the liar. The Christ, the liar. In the Bible is called the Antichrist, or in Judaism, Antichrist. So he is an Antichrist against Isa alayhi salam. Rasul called him Masih Ad-Dajjal. The Christ who is the liar, meaning he's not the real Christ, but he will make people think that he is. This man, Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal, Rasul told us, will cause fitna to all people with everything that Allah has given him of powers. He will make rain come down as he wills wherever he wants it to come, and he'll deny it from the people he doesn't want to have rain. He can revive the land with crops and plantation, and he can cause another land to be dead and never have crops and plantation, so no food for its people. And many other such powers which Allah has given him in order to test the people as one of the final tests for mankind towards the end of the last time. As for Isa alayhi salam, in order to distinguish him from him, Isa alayhi salam used to heal the blind bi'idhnillah, and he could raise the dead bi'idhnillah, really, like in real. Ad-Dajjal can't do these, but he will be an illusion. He will make it look like he has risen people from the dead. And I'm going to explain that in a minute, inshallah. He is also called Al-Masih, not only because of the eye that looks like it's been wiped off, but also the word Masih in Arabic means that the one who will spread out through the world. He will go everywhere in the world. And it's also true. He will go everywhere in the world. He will reach every place in the world and occupy it except for two places. Mecca and Medina, or Tiba, or Yathrib, as it's called. It's got three names, it's got several names. Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal calls it Tiba. Tiba means Medina and Mecca. He will not be able to set foot, he will not be able to go into it. But he will reach its borders, and he will try to deceive the people who are in there. So, Al-Masih Ad-Dajjal, he'll first come out to say, I am Christ, I am Isa, alayhi salam. Rasul ﷺ describes him, Aj'adu Shar. He's got very coarse hair. He is a man from the children of Adam. When he comes out, the believers will know him, and they will not be deceived by him. He will have 3 letters on his forehead, Kafara, which means kufr or kafar, the hider of the truth or the rejecter of the truth. He will be young in age. He's not old, probably in his mid-30s. He's red-skinned, meaning he's more reddish in color when you look at him. He's not tall, he's short. Reasonably short, relatively short. But his body is very stocky, it's huge. Like when you look at him, you say, whoa, he is a huge man. But he's very stocky, he's not too tall, he's quite short actually. His skin is coarse as well, and his face looks rough. And his forehead is wide. Ajla al-jabha. His forehead is wide. His chest is wide. Wide shoulders. His right eye looks like it's been wiped off. Like that grape. The right eye he can't see with. He can only see with his left. And this eye doesn't look like it's poking out, nor does it look like it's hollow. It just looks, as I said, like a dry piece of grape. His left eye has got an extra piece of meat on it. So it looks like it's got a piece of extra meat either underneath it or on top of it. So Rasulullah describing him in detail here. And the letters on his forehead are either, Rasulullah told us, they're either cut, meaning letter by letter, or they're joined. But they mean the same thing. Every Muslim will be able to read it except the kafir. And one of his other descriptions is that he is impotent. He cannot have children. He cannot have children. Nor does he get married. These are some of his detailed descriptions which the Prophet ﷺ told us about. So Ad-Dajjal is not a metaphor. It's not, some people they say to you, the Dajjal, what the Prophet ﷺ is talking about, is the television. The television is one-eyed and it lies to you. No. Rasulullah ﷺ gave a particular description because the TV doesn't have coarse hair, right? And it doesn't have two eyes. Okay? And it doesn't have the three letters, kafara. You can play beautiful Quran on the TV if you want. There is a man at the time of Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, just tell you his story. His name was nicknamed Ibn Sayyad, Safi ibn Sayyad. His name was Safi, son of Sayyad. Has anyone heard about him? Safi ibn Sayyad? No? طيب, we'll tell you his story. This man, Safi ibn Sayyad, he lived at the time of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And he was a young boy who was raised originally from a Jewish family. And he hated the Prophet ﷺ immensely. He was grown to hate him a lot. And they used to say that this young boy, Safi ibn Sayyad, he was able to tell you what you're thinking. He had these certain abilities. True story. And it's in the Sahih, it's not something made up. And Rasul ﷺ heard about him. And he wanted to go one day to find out whether he was really the Dajjal or not. He goes, Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu was with him. And they were going towards the village where Safi ibn Sayyad was. And he was sitting down, playing with something, when his mother, when Rasul ﷺ was trying to come, Umar al-Khattab describes it, says, he's coming from tree to tree. Rasul ﷺ is hiding behind the trees, trying to come closer to this boy to try and hear what he's saying. He was saying some things, we want to hear him, what he says. As Rasul ﷺ approached Safi very closely, he got very close and started to hear what he's saying. Suddenly the boy's mother saw the Prophet ﷺ and she said, Ya Safi, dhaka Muhammad. Muhammad's there, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Safi looked up and stopped talking. He started getting angry. Like that, he hated him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, for no reason. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, if only his mother didn't see me, I could have listened for a few more words and I would have known whether he is the Dajjal or not. Because people were talking about him being the Dajjal himself. That he will rise from there and he will be the Dajjal. Rasul ﷺ said to the boy, he said, أَخْبَأْتُ لَكَ شَيْئًا. I hid something inside of my brain, inside of my chest, that I want you to try and figure out what it is. And the boy looked, frowned a bit, and he said, Ad-Dukh, Ad-Dukh. I can only get Ad-Dukh, Ad-Dukh. The Prophet ﷺ said, La ala qadruk. May your power never rise beyond that. And Rasul ﷺ said to him, do you believe that I am the messenger of God? He said, only if you believe that I'm the messenger of God. So he's a bit of a cocky dude, isn't it? I'm the messenger of God. Prophet ﷺ got up and left. Umar al-Khattab asked him, what was that ad-dukh? What did you hide inside of you? What was that word that you kept hidden? He said, I hid the word ad-dukhan. Ad-dukhan, which means the smoke. And he guessed half of it. This man, this boy Safi ibn Sayyad, grew up. And he lived in Medina. He actually embraced Islam. And he got married. And they say that he had something like 10 children. And the companions used to avoid him. They couldn't trust being around him. One day, they went to do Hajj. And they're coming back from Hajj. And on the way, Sayyad ibn Musayyib or was it, no, not Sayyad ibn Musayyib, but a companion of the Prophet ﷺ was sitting next to him, like next to a shade under a tree, resting. And then Safi ibn Sayyad got his luggage up and sat next to this companion. And the companion looked at him and he sort of didn't want him to be next to him, and he said to him, look, there's lots of shade around, you can go and sit somewhere else. So he started to cry. Safi ibn Sayyad cried. He said to him, why are you crying? He said, about what everyone's saying about me, that I'm the Dajjal and all of that stuff. And he looked at him and said, you should know, of all people, this companion was an Ansari from Medina, you are very knowledgeable. You should know that Ad-Dajjal is not a Muslim, and I'm a Muslim. He cannot get married, and I'm married. He cannot have children, and I have children. And he cannot enter Mecca or Medina, and here I am. The companion said, Wallah, he's right. You have a point. Then Safi ibn Sayyad said to him, but you know what? That name is quite nice. It's a cool name to call me Ad-Dajjal with all those powers. I wouldn't mind if I was actually him. And the companion got up and said, please stay away from me. And he walked away from him. And while Safi ibn Sayyad was laughing. So this man was a very strange person. After the Prophet ﷺ's death, there was that great fight, that great war that happened with Musaylim al-Kadhab, where hundreds of memorizers of the Quran were murdered. And they looked, Safi ibn Sayyad was fighting with them, and they looked for his body, and they say, we could never find him neither among the dead or the living. And all of his children died, and his wife died, and after that battle they couldn't find him at all. He vanished.